Good day, my dear colleagues. My name is Dr. Anna Vasilkirivna, and today we are going to speak about designing tasks for criterion-based assessment, a step-by-step guide. The essence of criterion-based assessment lies in dividing evaluation into components that reflect students' specific learning achievements. In English language teaching, students' success is determined by the ability to master individual linguistic structures, grammar, vocabulary, phonetics, combine these structures to create more complex sentences, present their work accurately and clearly, use professional language and supporting elements, tables, charts, visuals to present their ideas. When evaluating individual work, it is important to draw the students' attention to their success in specific components that contributed to the final grade. This makes the evaluation process transparent, open marketing, and help learners understand which aspect of their performance need more focus. Criterion-based assessment technology can be applied across all academic subjects and is developed according to the specific content of each discipline. Traditionally, most Kazakhstani schools have used a 4-point grading system: unsatisfactory, satisfactory, good, and the excellent mark. In this system, teachers evaluate students by considering the learner's level relative to a certain standard, the learner's level compared to the class average, the learner's progress compared to their previous result. So in criterion-based assessment, however, the student becomes an active participant in their own learning process. School-related anxiety decreases. The teacher shifts from being final judge to a consultant or mentor. Thus, criterion-based assessment has strong potential to motivate students towards successful learning. Students' achievement in English language. So students' progress in English can be assessed through the following aspects. Firstly, knowledge and understanding, knowing individual grammatical structures. The second, thinking, understanding the meaning of a text, of an audio material, answering questions and choosing correct options. Communication, using grammatical structures and vocabulary in speech. And application, writing letters of supporting a dialogue using lexical and grammatical units. A criterion describes what an outcome of a learning task should look like, while indicators show how close the students to achieving that goal. When designing indicators, students can self-assess their work quality, which motivates them to aim for higher results. Criterion-based assessment provides effective feedback, helping learners understand their strengths and areas for improvement. Poor results are not seen as a failure, but as recommendations for growth. This approach makes the evaluation process objective, transparent, and accessible to all participants, teachers, students, and parents. At the same time, it requires teachers to design clear, evidence-based criteria for every learning objective, demanding professional preparation and continuous development. Criterion-based assessment, therefore, is an important tool for improving teaching quality. In English language education, it allows systematic development of learners' language skills. The teacher's main task is to create reliable and fair tasks aligned with learning objectives. Next slide. We will speak about step-by-step guide to designing tasks for criterion-based assessment, Bloom's taxonomy. Bloom's taxonomy is a framework that classifies educational goals into different levels of thinking. It helps teachers design learning objectives, tasks, and assessments that promote higher-order thinking skills. The taxonomy is usually presented as a hierarchical model from simple knowledge recall to complex creative thinking. Below is a step-by-step description of Bloom's 6 levels. First, remembering knowledge. The ability to recall or recognize facts, terms, and basic concepts. Focus, memorization, and recall. Typical verbs can be define, list, name, identify, recall, recognize. Example, list the parts of a computer system. And the next is understanding, comprehension, the ability to explain ideas, interpret information, and grasp meaning. Focus, showing comprehension rather than just memorizing. Typical verbs can be describe, explain, summarize, interpret, classify, discuss. For example, explain the main idea of the text in your own words. The next stage is applying application, using learned information in new situations of context. Focus practical use of knowledge and skills. Typical verbs can be used: use, demonstrate, implement, solve, apply, illustrate. For example, use new vocabulary to create a short dialogue about daily routines. The next stage is analysis, breaking information into parts to understand relationship patterns or structures. Focus critical thinking and identifying cause-effect connections. Typical verbs can be analyze, compare, contrast, differentiate, categorize, examine. For example, compare the viewpoints of two characters in the story. The next stage is evaluation, making judgment based on criteria and evidence, assessing the value of ideas or materials. So, focus justification, argumentation, and decision making. Typical verbs can be evaluate, judge, justify, criticize, defend, assess. For example, judge which solution is more effective and explain why. The next stage is creating, synthesis, combining elements to form a new structure, idea, or product. Focus innovation and originality. Typical verbs can be design, create, develop, compose, contrast, produce. For example, design a poster that promotes healthy eating habits. Bloom's taxonomy provides a step-by-step model of cognitive development, moving from lower-order thinking skills, remembering, understanding, applying, so to higher-order thinking skills, analyzing, evaluating, creating. It guides teachers in planning lessons, designing assessment tasks, and promoting deep, reflective, and critical learning among students. Next slide. We are going to speak about common errors in assessment and ways to prevent them now. Common errors. Assessment plays a crucial role in measuring students' knowledge, skills, and progress. However, several common errors can reduce its accuracy, reliability, and fairness. Below is an overview of typical assessment errors and strategies to prevent them. Firstly, we will talk about lack of clear criteria. Error. Teachers assess students without clear or specific criteria, leading to subjective or inconsistent grading. Prevention. Develop explicit assessment criteria and descriptors before the task. Share them with students in advance so they understand what is expected. Use rubrics to ensure consistently and transparently. Halo effect. Error. A teacher's general impression of a student's behavior, past performance, influences grading to unrelated tasks. Prevention. Focus only on the specific task performance, not the student's personality. Use anonymous marking when possible. Review grades objectively and completing all assessments. The next is central tendency error. The tendency to avoid giving very high or very low marks, keeping all scores near the average. Prevention. Evaluate based on the actual quality of work, not comfort level. Regularly moderate grading with colleagues to ensure accuracy. The next will be leniency or severity bias. Some teachers consistently give grades that are too high or too low. Prevention. Calibrate assessment with other teachers using sample scripts or benchmark papers. Reflect on grading patterns over time. Rely on objective rubrics and written evidence rather than impressions. Inconsistently in scoring. What is it? The same teacher gives different grades to similar performance at different times. Prevention. Mark all responses to the same question together. Horizontal marking. Create and follow a marking scheme. Double-check samples to ensure uniformity. And misalignment with learning objectives. What is the mistake here? Assessment tasks do not match the learning goals or tested skills. Prevention. Always align assessment tasks with learning outcomes. Use Bloom's taxonomy to ensure balance between knowledge, skills, and higher order thinking. Poor task design. Here, tasks are too difficult, too easy, or ambiguous, making it hard to measure real performance. Prevention. Pilot tasks before using them. Revise unclear instructions or questions. Ensure validity. The task measures what it is supposed to measure. The next one is lack of feedback. Error. Teachers provide grades without meaningful feedback. Limiting learning improvement. Prevention. Give constructive specific feedback explaining what has done well and what can be improved. Encourage self and peer assessment to promote reflection. The next problem is cultural or language bias. Assessment may favor certain cultural or linguistic groups. Prevention. Use neutral or inclusive language. Adapt examples to reflect students' diverse backgrounds. Review tasks for bias or unfamiliar references. The next problem is over-reliance on one type of assessment. Using only tests or exams to judge performance ignores other learning aspects. Prevention. Apply a variety of assessment methods, quizzes, projects, presentations, portfolios, and peer reviews. Combine formative and summative assessment for a complete picture of learning. Next slide. Error sources in assessment. Leniency or severity bias. This occurs when an assessor consistently gives grades that are either too high or too low, regardless of the actual performance level. A lenient assessor may overestimate students' abilities, while a severe assessor may undervalue their efforts. Prevention. To avoid this, it is important to use clear and detailed assessment criteria, rubrics, and ensure consistently through moderation sessions where teachers compare and align their grading standards. Second is halo effects. This happens when one positive or negative aspects of a student's performance influences the overall evaluation. For example, a teacher might give a higher mark because the student usually performs well, even if the current task is weak. Prevention. Each criterion should be assessed separately, and teachers should focus strictly on the evidence demonstrated in the specific task rather than on general impressions. Third, central tendency. Some assessors tend to avoid giving very high or very low marks and prefer to give average scores to all students. This reduces the accuracy of assessment and fails to reflect true differences in performance. Prevention. Clarify the meaning of each level on the rating scales, use examples of work at various levels, and provide regular training to assessors to improve confidence in making fair judgments. Next is personal bias. Assessors may be unconsciously influenced by their personal preferences, attitudes, or relationship with students. Factors such as behavior, appearance, or personality can unfairly affect the marks given. Prevention. Anonymous marking where possible and regular self-reflection on peer review or assessment help minimize the impact of personal bias. Maintaining professionalism and objectivity is essential. And about logical error. This error occurs when assessor applies assessment criteria inconsistently or misinterprets the descriptors. For instance, the teacher may confuse language accuracy with content quality or fail to distinguish between related but separate skills. Prevention. Assessors should receive clear guidelines and training on how to interpret rubrics. Reviewing sample assessment and discussing borderline classes can also help maintain logical consistency. Recognizing and addressing these common sources of error ensures fairness, reliability, and validity in the assessment process. So, next slide. Here we will talk about analysis of assessment results, how to use data in practice. In the modern education system, assessment is no longer limited to assigning grades. It has become a key tool for improving teaching quality, monitoring students' academic progress, and enhancing teachers' professional practice. Analyzing assessment data allows teachers to make informed instructional decisions and continuously improve students' learning outcomes. In English language teaching, the analysis of assessment result is particularly important. Language skills, listening, speaking, reading, and writing, develop at different rates for each learner. Assessment data require additional support. For instance, one student may have strong reading comprehension skills but struggle with oral communication. Such patterns can be revealed through careful data analysis. There are several effective ways to use assessment results. First, teachers can compile data after each task to identify common difficulties among students. For example, if many students misuse the new vocabulary in sentences, the teacher should devote more time to vocabulary practice in subsequent lessons. Second, by analyzing individual student strengths and weaknesses, teachers can design differentiated activities. This is especially useful in mixed ability English classes. When analyzing assessment results, teachers should focus not only on weakness but also on students' achievements. Recognizing students help build learners' confidence and motivation. For example, feedback such as "you made some grammar mistakes, but your ideas were clearly expressed and well developed" encourages further progress. Another effective use of assessment data is improving lesson planning. By reviewing the result for each topic, teachers can determine which methods were successful and which were not. For instance, if most students performed well in group, it indicates the strategy for effective. However, if many errors in individual writing tasks, further classification is needed. It's also important to discuss assessment results with parents and students themselves. This promotes transparency and fairness. Teachers should not merely assign grades but clearly explain, using concrete data, what progress the student has made and what areas still need improvement. In English lessons, the practical application of assessment data may include listening. If students make similar errors in dictation, the listening materials may need to be adapted. Speaking. If discussions show a limited vocabulary, more time should be spent on vocabulary building. Writing. Analyzing essay results help to identify difficulties in their organization. Reading. Comprehension question results indicate how well students can identify main ideas. Next slide, please. Teachers are encouraged to record assessment data regularly in an electronic table or journal. This enables comparison over time, for example, between the first and second terms, to visualize each student's progress. In summary, the analysis of assessment results is one of the most effective tools for monitoring students' development, improving teaching quality, and enhancing teachers' professional growth. When this process is organized systematically, assessment becomes not a formal procedure but a powerful means of fostering student success and raising teaching standards. Analyzing assessment results is one of the most essential stages of a teacher's professional activity. In English language teaching, assessment is not only a way to show students' achievement, but also a means to refine teaching methods. A teacher who analyzes results effectively can identify learning gaps and plan remedial activities accordingly. First of all, by systematizing the collected data, teachers can create individualized learning trajectories. For instance, they can visualize progress in grammar or vocabulary development using charts and diagrams, providing clear and reliable information for both students and parents. Teachers can also analyze overall class trends to determine which skills are weakest and prioritize them in the next term. One practical way to use assessment data is to strengthen differentiation. For example, students who show lower speaking performance can be given additional pair on group tasks, while those performing well can work on more complex projects. This ensures targeted support for every learner. Furthermore, analyzing assessment results help teachers improve their own teaching. If several students make the same mistake, this may indicate a gap in instruction or task design. In conclusion, analyzing assessment result is a key mechanism for improving teaching quality. It helps teachers identify students' learning paths, reconsider methodological approaches, and make the educational process more effective. Storing data should not be a mere formality. It should be used for reflection, correction, support, and motivation, demonstrating the teacher's professional excellence. Thank you for giving time.